Hi, I'm Jade from Jacob Steele, and today I'm going to be speaking to our very own managing directors, Matt Jacobs and Pat Barton, who will be answering our top COVID-19 property FAQs. So let's go. Hi guys,
Hi Jade.
how are
Hi
you?
Jade.
How are you both?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Good, yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, all good, thank you.
We're here today, obviously, to answer some of the most frequently asked questions that I know you guys have been getting. So I suppose the first one would be, are still people out there viewing properties? Are they still able to view properties in some way?
Yeah, I mean, as you're aware, obviously, we've had to change how we operate at the moment, but the level of inquiries is still pretty good. I think it's easy to forget that there were a lot of people prior to COVID-19 that had a buyer in place, had a chain in place, and desperately needed to find. So the number of inquiries are still coming through regularly through all the portals and through our website. But how we're actually offering viewings now is via virtual tours, which has been successful. But we're obviously in a position where we're teeing up a lot of face-to-face viewings to happen soon as restrictions are lifted as well.
What sort of level are the inquiries at now? You know, we're sort of 6 weeks or so into lockdown. Have things changed?
I think it depends on the weather. When it's nice and hot out there and everyone's sunbathing, they drop off a little bit. But even today, since the rain's come in, the phone's been ringing off the hook and the inquiries have been coming in a bit thicker and faster. I think everyone's very appreciative now that they're probably inquiring and they're not going to be able to go out there and see a property straight away, but they do want to express their interest for when they can.
Mm. I suppose from the point of view of a vendor or a seller, what they're going to want to know is their property going to become stale during this period? You know, that there isn't perhaps as much activity as there would be normally pre-COVID-19. So what's happening to properties on the market now?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because typically people have always judged properties by how long they've been on the portals, and it's been that situation in the estate agency of it goes stale if it's on there for a long time. But I think people aren't going to judge properties in the same way now. People are going to look at properties a little bit more individually. And I think people got so hung up on wanting to buy the new property on Rightmove or Zoopla or wherever it may be, that actually they're not looking at the whole of the stock that's available. Looking at the details of properties and how right is it for them, as opposed to how long has it been on the market for. And there's obviously a lot fewer properties coming online now during this period, so those that are available are going to get quite a lot more attention than perhaps they would have done previously. So I think people will look at it in a very different way now. Like Matt mentioned earlier, we're doing the video viewings, WhatsApp video viewings, which are going very well. We're becoming quite the expert in doing that now with some of our vendors. So people see a lot more than maybe just the photos, the floor plans, etc. They would have looked at on the portals previously.
What about valuations then? Because obviously, like you said, there is a lot less property coming to the market than there is usually. So are people still able to get valuations if they want one?
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever we carry out a valuation in a normal environment, we do an awful lot of research before we go around and see that particular vendor and that property. None of that's been taken away. So we're still able to do all the research some require on their property. And then we're typically jumping on a video call with them. They're showing us around the property, and then we're having a conversation at the end of the meeting to give them some insight into comparables and what the market's been doing and what similar properties have sold for. So that hasn't changed at all. People are regularly going to our website at the moment and getting online valuations as well, which is really easy to do. And then if you get your online valuation back and you want any further detail, then we're certainly available to have a chat through that as well. With regards to unoccupied properties, we can go in and value those as we would do in a normal market. So we've regularly worked out with sellers that have had people move out of their property prior to COVID-19 that would like a valuation done. We work out how we can safely, via social distancing, pick up keys, go around there, do a valuation, drop the keys back, and then have a phone call and give them some insight to what our thoughts are.
What about those that have sold? So are they still able to progress with their sale or their purchase?
Yeah, obviously, for us at the moment, we're putting far less new sales in hand. That's the same for the solicitors. So if there's less sales in hand and our time is less distracted with going out, doing valuations and viewings and being in and out of the office all day, an awful lot of our time is spent on progressing the current sales. So I'd actually say potentially at the moment, sales are progressing faster and more efficiently than they would do in a normal environment. Solicitors are being very responsive. Searches are continuing to come back in a timely manner. If anything, we're doing everything we can to try and progress the sales that are in hand to a point that they can either exchange and complete once restrictions have been lifted. Obviously, there are some situations where we have to rely on third parties to access properties, and if they're occupied, that might slow down the conveyancing process. But on the whole, they seem to be moving quite efficiently. And I think buyers and sellers are really pleased with how everything's progressing, and they can plan for a post-COVID-19 exchange and completion.
So you mentioned just then, obviously, if a property is occupied, that may slow things down a little bit. Is that because of things like mortgage valuations and surveys, or are they still able to take place?
Exactly that. So where there is a third-party person that needs to visit a property, then we're in a position where it's very difficult for them to do so, obviously, in the current climate. That said, mortgage surveyors are doing everything they can to try and adjust as well. So they might be doing drive-by valuations, they might be doing desktop valuations where possible. So we are still getting some mortgage offers coming through without them having to visit the property. Now, if you're getting a full survey done, typically there's no way around it, but booking those surveys in for the point that they can go around and visit an occupied property.
What about people changing their minds? Have you had many buyers or sellers that have maybe thought twice about continuing with their transaction?
Yeah, I mean, obviously some people's circumstances have changed and changed quite quickly, which has meant that moving is not a feasible proposition for them at the moment. So that has happened. But generally, on the whole, the majority of sellers and buyers are still very committed to their purchases and sales. They're not necessarily changing their mind. I think those that are selling and buying actually are probably more focused on it now than they were previously. And unless their own personal circumstances are such where they can't move, then no, they're very keen to still move forward with it.
To be honest, it all sounds very positive.
It's a lot more positive than perhaps we thought it might be. When we went into this lockdown situation, we all thought that was it. That was the end of the housing market for now. But actually, it's not been the case. People have found ways to adjust and do things in a slightly different way. And actually the wheels are still turning. So
things like property prices, obviously that's the main question I think on everybody's minds is
absolutely. Yeah, it is the big question. We're a nation of homeowners, and at the end of the day, because we're a nation of homeowners, everybody's interested in the property market. We're always working. I don't go to a friend's house and not have to go through a bit of a evaluation on their property. Pat, what's the market doing? What's my house worth? Because we are interested in it. And of course, it's something that the media latch onto as well. But none of us have got a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the upshot will be with the market out of this or anything else that goes on in life. But look, on the basis that we don't expect to be in lockdown for too long a period, for months and months, and I think the market will come back, to be honest, pretty much how it was before lockdown and before we went into this situation.
I think they're the main questions that people have been asking. So is there anything that you guys specifically want to say to our communities out there? Or
I think the only thing I'd add is I'm sure there's a lot of people like me that are addicted to property portals, and over the last few weeks they've probably been quite frustrated that there's been little coming on. Obviously, typically the properties that are coming back to market are the ones that have either fallen through during this COVID-19 phase. There have been a huge amount of, or they're vacant properties. Everything has been delayed, and this is usually one of the busiest time of year for instructions. And I think there's an awful lot of vendors that we're speaking to at the moment that had planned to go on the market at some point during April, and they are getting their houses in order. They're doing that bit of DIY and they're fixing up their gardens, so they're going to be photo ready as soon as the restrictions are lifted. And I think there's going to be a mini boom, a massive properties that will come onto the market with, you know, the weeks following any lockdown restrictions being lifted. We're very excited about getting back to it, and we're speaking to a lot of people at the moment, both looking to buy and sell, that are excited about what summer may bring too.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, I've recently been speaking to an interior designer who's given some tips on how people can prepare. But is there anything that you guys would add to that for those that are looking to sell post COVID-19?
Yeah, I think, you know, we've all been at home a lot more than we used to, and probably looking at our properties and what we can do to them. Yeah, me included. I've been picking up things from the DIY stores regularly, and I've taken care of those jobs that have been on the list for a while. So, you know, smartening things up in your house is a great idea. Getting the property ready for those photographs when we do want to put you onto the market.
It's a great opportunity to declutter. I tackled that at the weekend. It's a painful job, but it does. I'm sure it cleanses the mind a little bit, but it also makes the property look a lot better for when viewings occur and photos are being taken.
All right then, guys. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for watching, and if you have any other questions, then please do feel free to contact us. We're answering the office telephone numbers and picking up emails, so please do get in contact. But for now, we hope you stay safe, stay well, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, guys.